We're letting people in the meantime. Okay, while people get into the room, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us to second part of our webinar, Who Profits from Hunger? Climate and Chemicals is going to be the topic of today's chat. So I'm very happy to welcome two of our partners today who are going to talk about their experiences of work in Bangladesh and Kenya on the issues of agrochemicals, agrotoxics, GMO seeds, and climate adaptation to the climate crisis. So I'm just going to give some information on some housekeeping rules. Today we are going to have two presentations. One is going to be in English and the other is going to be in Bangla. So there is a channel that you can choose if you need the English interpretation. And you should be able, if you are on a laptop, you should be able to see now a globe that lets you choose between original audio, English, and Bengali. And if you're watching this on streaming, you should be able to watch it also on Facebook. And on Twitter, you'll be able to watch only the English interpreted version. So if you want to watch the other channel, you have to log in to Zoom. A kind note to the speakers, please speak slowly to facilitate the work of the interpreters. And another thing, instead, if you're watching from the smartphone, you will see 3 dots on the top right, and you click there and you will see the little globe with the language interpretation options. So first of all, I want to do a very quick introduction. Today we will show you 2 documentaries that we have done in collaboration with our partners. And so the reason why we are doing this 2-part seminar is to present the results of our report, Profiting from Hunger, that you can access online. You can download the PDF version, and you can read also the digital version. And as a integration to the report, there are also these documentaries that are embedded in the report. So so without further ado, I'm going to do a very brief introduction about today. The right to food is a fundamental human right, yet the current model of food production is failing to deliver this right. Although enough food is grown to feed the world's population twice over, millions are hungry, food insecure, or malnourished. The current global food system isn't designed to feed people. It is designed to maximize profits for a handful of corporations. The rights to land, work, to a safe and a healthy work environment, the right to seeds are, for example, some of the human rights that have been recently reaffirmed by the UN Declaration of the Rights of Peasants and other people working in the rural areas, UNDROP. We will discuss some of these rights today because they are under attack and they must be defended against the advancement of policy agendas and systemic practices that see human life and nature as assets and commodities that exist solely to further the corporate profits. Despite this crisis and these challenges on today's global food system, there is, however, plenty of room for hope. Networks of peasant movements around the world are growing and connecting different struggles, organizing together in important policy spaces and winning crucial battles. The adoption of the UNDROP in 2018 by the United Nations is an example of this. It was the result of a long struggle by peasant movements and civil society, and a huge win, as it is the first declaration of its kind that has been written by the peasants and for the peasants. And our recent report, Profiting from Hunger, Popular Resistance to Corporate Food Systems, shows some of these important changes and challenges in the last decade, as well as the practical alternatives that are being built and the rights being defended by peasants and workers' movements around the world to tackle them. Today, we want to discuss this with our partners and show you 2 short documentaries with direct testimonies of the struggles and the strategies. So, thank you very much. So now we will show the first documentary from BAFLF JKSS, and afterwards we will hear from Gulam Sorobor a little bit more.
Farming and fishing are central to the lives and livelihoods of the Bangladeshi people, but the climate crisis is putting this at risk.
আমাদের 22 বিঘা জমি ছিল এক বাটি, অনেক জমি ছিল, আর এক বাটি তো অনেক, নটা খোলা 96 বিঘা জমি, সম্পূর্ণ জমি এনে নদীর ভিতরে বিলীন হয়ে গেছে। বাড়িঘর ভেঙে নিয়ে পরে এনে আমরা এই মানুষের বাড়ি কাজ করি।
Bangladesh covers 50,000 square miles of land, of which around 35,000 square miles are cultivated for agriculture. That's 69% of the entire country. Rice provides close to 3/4 of the calories in an average Bangladeshi's diet. Rice is the main crop grown across the country, across 75% of all agricultural land, mostly in lowland and coastal areas prone to flooding. Across coastal areas, crops are most at risk from seawater flooding, resulting in waterlogged or excessively salty land, or from a lack of irrigation.
সবুজ এলাকাটা কিন্তু বালুচরে পরিণত হয়, এটি কিন্তু আমাদের এই অঞ্চলের পরিবেশ এবং পরিবেশের জন্য সংরক্ষিত।
More and more Bangladeshi farmers have been displaced from their lands by floods, and whole harvests have been lost. Many farmers have switched to growing different crop varieties, more capable of surviving rising temperatures and sea salt-soaked soil. In 2017, floods in wetland ecosystems in northeastern Bangladesh led to the loss of nearly 16 million tonnes of grain. And in October 2022, Cyclone Sitrang damaged 10,000 houses, 6,000 hectares of crops, and destroyed 1,000 fish farms.
শহরে ছিলাম, নদীর কৃষি কাজ করতাম, নদীতে ভেঙে যাওয়ার পরে এদিকে এসে কোনো গাছ মনে করেন যে ওইভাবে করতে পারি না, তখন নতুন পেশা হিসেবে চা বানানো শুরু করি।
Bangladesh will likely need to spend upwards of $2.5 billion on flood protections by 2050, and a further $54 million annually after that. Studies predict that if global temperatures rise by 2 to 4 degrees Celsius, wheat and potato production across Bangladesh would be reduced by almost 60%. A major contributor to the climate crisis is the industrialised global food system. Responsible for a third of all carbon emissions globally, this industrial model of food production has relied for decades on the heavy use of toxic pollutants such as chemical pesticides and fertilisers, damaging to both environmental biodiversity and to people's health.
কীটনাশক ব্যবহার কমায় আমরা প্রাকৃতিক উপায়ে কীটনাশকের বিকল্প ব্যবস্থা কিভাবে ফসল উৎপাদন করা যায়,
প্রয়োজনে টোটাল কীটনাশক বন্ধ করে দিয়ে অন্য কোনো পদ্ধতিতে, অর্থাৎ সবুজ সার বলেন বা অর্গানিক পদ্ধতিতে কোনো কিছু ব্যবহার করা যায় কিনা এই ব্যাপারে বিশেষ পদক্ষেপ নেওয়া।
জিএমওটা আমরা মনে করি না এটা কৃষকের জন্য উপকারী কোনো বিষয়, আমরা মনে করি কোনো কোম্পানির ইন্টারেস্টের কারণে জিএমওটা ইন্ট্রোডিউস করা হচ্ছে, এটা কৃষকের জন্য না।
Across Bangladesh, farmers and farm workers, particularly women, are facing serious health issues from exposure to these hazardous pesticides. But movements and trade unions in Bangladesh are fighting back by organising to create alternative food systems, more resilient to the effects of the climate crisis, which respect and enhance the rights of farmers and farm workers.
বাংলাদেশের প্রত্যন্ত অঞ্চলে যে কৃষি ফার্মগুলো আছে, সেই কৃষি ফার্ম শ্রমিক প্রতিনিধিরা প্রত্যেকটা ফার্মে ঘুরে ঘুরে তাদেরকে একত্রিত করে।
সংগঠিত হয়ে বাংলাদেশ কৃষি ফার্ম শ্রমিক ফেডারেশন নামে রেজিস্ট্রেশন হয়। হওয়ার পরে আমরা ম্যানেজমেন্টের সাথে কথা বলি।
কৃষি গবেষণা, ধান গবেষণা, পাট গবেষণা, ইকো গবেষণা, সেরিকালচার, এই যে খামারের শ্রমিকরা আছে তাদের বিভিন্ন সমস্যা, তাদের দাবি দেওয়া, এইসব বিষয় নিয়েই মূলত কাজ করে।
আমাদের সংগঠনের সদস্য হচ্ছে নারী কৃষক, কৃষাণ শ্রমিক যারা সমান মজুরি পায় না, স্বীকৃতি পায় না, তাদের নিয়ে কাজ করি মূলত আমরা। স্বীকৃতি না দেওয়ার কারণে তারা তো সরকারি কোনো লোন পায় না, ওরকম কোনো সুযোগ সুবিধা পায় না, কোনো জায়গায় যায়। বিশাল অঙ্কের যে নারীরা আছে, হ্যাঁ, এদের যে ট্রেড ইউনিয়ন কিভাবে করানো যাচ্ছে এটা উদ্বুদ্ধ করার চেষ্টা করি আমরা।
প্রতিষ্ঠার পর থেকেই পর্যায়ক্রমে সেই 5 টাকা থেকে শুরু করে অদ্যপতি আজকে একজন শ্রমিকের মজুরি 600 টাকা।
সাপ্তাহিক কোনো ছুটি ছিল না, এখন তারা সাপ্তাহিক নিয়মিত শ্রমিকরা সাপ্তাহিক ছুটি ভোগ করতে পারতেছে একদিন। বাৎসরিক কোনো ছুটি ছিল না, সেটা ভোগ করতে পারতেছে।
উৎসব ছুটি দিছে আর 15 দিন সিএল ছুটি।
নারী শ্রমিকরা তারা ম্যাটারনিটি লিভ ভোগ করতে পারতেছে।
Bangladesh Agricultural Farm Labour Federation and Jatiyo Kisani Shramik Samiti represent a growing number of small-scale farmers responding to the climate crisis and preparing for the future by using farming methods based on traditional knowledge to adapt and mitigate the effects of climate breakdown.
ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জটা গ্লোবালি হচ্ছে, কিভাবে খাপ খাওয়া চলতে পারি, মানে সেটার ব্যাপারে আমরা তাদেরকে অ্যাওয়ার করতেছি।
বিভিন্ন অঞ্চল ভিত্তিক আমরা ক্যাম্পেইন করছি, তাদেরকে সচেতন করে যাতে এই ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত থেকে বাঁচানো যায় এবং সরকারকে তাদেরকে যেন শস্য বীমা সহ ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জের কারণে যে সমস্ত সমস্যাগুলো আছে এগুলো যাতে সমাধান করে।
লবণ পানির সমস্যা হয়েছে, লবণ পানিয়ে কোনো ফসল হইতো না, একটু বেশি বৃষ্টি হইলে মরিয়া যায়। পদ্ধতিতে লাউডা বেশি হয়।
Sweet pumpkin, rice pumpkin, bitter gourd, okra, red spinach and other creeping vegetables can be grown in vegetable bags, which protects crops from flooding. In coastal areas, farmers are making use of traditional pond cultivation techniques to grow vegetables alongside farming fish. Pond embankments are elevated so that tidal water cannot enter. Creeping vegetables are grown on the inner banks, the outer banks are lined with fruit trees, and various vegetables are planted in the middle. Farmers are solving irrigation and flooding issues by planting vegetables in raised beds.
খালের পানি তো নোনা থাকে, নোনা পানি তো চলবো না। এই মাটি উঠাইছি, মাটি উঠাই পানি জমাইছি যাতে পানি লাগলে এই জায়গাতে পানি উঠে আবার এই জায়গায় যাতে দিতে পারি। আগে স্থিতি অনেক ভালো।
Raised bed farming makes it possible to grow crops even in the dry season. The excessive use of chemical pesticides is expensive for smallholder farmers, whilst damaging the soil, local ecosystems and human health, with sometimes deadly consequences. Farmers in Bangladesh are now creating safer, cheaper and more environmentally friendly alternatives to chemical pesticides, such as using insect pheromones to attract, trap and kill pests.
কিন্তু পোকা দেখলো আমরা দৈনিক ওষুধ দিছি, না দেখলো দৈনিক ওষুধ দিয়ে গেছি। ফেরোমন ট্র্যাপ দিয়ে কিন্তু আমরা অনেকটা উপকার পাইছি।
Another useful technique for improving soil quality is vermicomposting, or worm composting, which creates an excellent organic, nutrient-rich fertilizer and soil conditioner.
তৈরি হবে এইভাবে যত কৃষক তত ব্যবহার শিখবে এবং মাটির স্বাস্থ্যকে রক্ষা করার যে যুদ্ধ আমরা করছি এটা আরো অনেক সহজ হয়ে যাবে।
Village farmers, mostly women, preserve seeds for the following year's paddy cultivation using a technique called the Maria Seed Technology Model. Farmers slowly mix a kilogram of salt with 4 to 5 litres of water in a tub, add an egg and continue mixing until the egg floats. Seeds are then added into this mixture. If they also float, they are considered low quality and are rejected. The seeds which sink to the bottom are ready for preservation.
মনে করি যে সরকার যদি এই খাদ্যের সার্বভৌমত্বটাকে তার পলিসির ভিতরে ইন্ট্রোডিউস করে তাইলে কৃষিতে অনেক সমস্যার সমাধান হয়ে যাবে। এখনো অনেক সমস্যা রয়ে গেছে, সেই সমস্যা নিয়েও আসলে ফেডারেশন কাজ করতেছে।
The global food system is broken. It puts profits above people and planet, fueling climate breakdown, hunger and poverty. The alternative to our industrial food system is food sovereignty and peasant agroecology, farming that works with nature. BAFL and JKSS are fighting for that future.
All right, thank you everyone. So now I would like to introduce one of the representatives of this organization, is Ghulam Sorogov. He is the General Secretary of Bangladesh Agricultural Farm Labor Federation that you have seen in the documentary, where he has been working for the last 20 years. BAFLF is a national trade union federation in the agricultural sector that dates back to 1978. Since its inception, the organization worked to protect and promote the rights and interests of small and marginal farmers, farm workers, and wage agricultural workers. BAFLF is fighting to promote social protection, livelihood protection, gender equality, the improvement of health and safety with a broader trade union campaign for climate justice and for collective bargaining rights of agricultural workers and farmers. BAFLF takes an active stand on issues that affect agricultural, rural workers, peasants, and women's rights. It advocates for farmers' control on seeds and technologies, promotes food sovereignty, and opposes the corporate globalization of agriculture, land grabbing, including the entry of GMOs in the country. So I would like to welcome Ghulam. He's going to speak in Bangla, so you will need to change to the English channel. Ghulam, if you can speak slowly, so the interpreter can interpret, can hear you clearly. And I will let you know 2 minutes before that you have 2 minutes left. And just a disclaimer that if you are having any issues with the audio, I apologize in advance. We are connected from different countries, so sometimes we are having these challenges, but we will be sure if the audio is not clear today, as we have done with the part 1 of this webinar, to provide afterwards a registration with the subtitles in English, so you can hear everything that our speakers have to say. So Ghulam, please.
Okay, thank you. অনেক ধন্যবাদ।
Thank you a lot, the moderators. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to thank Warren Want to present us with such a good video. You all know that the climate changes here in Bangladesh. It's a very often it happens, and we are having a negative impact of that because of the climate change. Our natural, the situation of our natural element has changed a lot. We have more floods, a lot of erosion, higher temperature, and etc. All these changes are we are having because of this climate change, which is affecting our lands and especially our farmers. So we are not having enough security. There is a lot of poverty, people trafficking, and malnutrition. Our agriculture is very much dependent on our climate or our weather. So a flood or a disaster can change, has a very huge impact on our harvest. Different natural calamities is happening a lot because of the climate change. Because of this climate change, we are having a lot of natural disasters, which are putting a very much negative impact on our people. 95% of our crops are getting ruined because of the Ayla. So the last flood, what happened? The last flood put 95% of our land, harvesting land, was ruined with salinity. The cyclone also made people homeless, 3 lakh people homeless. 15.8 million ton rice, Boro rice, was lost because of the cyclone Ayla. In our research, what we have found, because of the salinity, in this last 18 years, 59% of our harvest of rice has decreased. And around 2 to 3%, like from the area, villages nearby the sea are getting drawn under the sea. And the cyclones are not like before, they are coming more often than usual. People are leaving their land, especially the coastal people, and they're migrating to the town and trying to get new jobs, but they are actually have the skills for farming. After the Ayla cyclone in 2009, a lot of place got flooded, and then Amphan, another cyclone hit it, and all the barriers or inhibitions were destroyed. Not all of them, but a lot of them were destroyed. So all the coastal areas, inhibitions or barriers are not working, and a lot of aquaculture and other farming has been very much affected negatively. After the cyclones, the flash floods and heavy rain and salinity and all these things are putting a harsh effect on our land. The land and the living things of the coastal area, the animals are also getting affected. Around 1.5 million of people are having negative impacts. 26,000 of households has been ruined. On 2020, August, because of the flood, 37 districts had a huge amount of harvesting land gone under the water level. And all our harvest was gone in the land. Around 12 lakh 72,000 farmers have been affected, and this is around August, the farmers who harvest crops like vegetables and also rice farmers gone through a lot. These calamities are harming our farmers quite often and quite regularly. And why? But the farmers are not the reason for these calamities, but they are the people who are getting harmed. All around the world, a lot of people are using pesticides. And in every minute, 2 to 3 people are affecting by pesticides by having those foods. In every year, around 40,000 people are dying because of the pesticides, and 3 to 4 million, like 30 or around 30 to 40 million of people are getting harmed by these pesticides, especially for the developing countries where the pesticides are not tested and it's overly used. On FAO by UN report, we can see that around 2018, there was 31,000 metric ton pesticides were being imported in Bangladesh. And a lot of these pesticides, most of these pesticides are using in our for harvesting. And around these pesticides, 90% of them are very much harmful for our health. And a lot of countries actually banned these pesticides, but we still use it. More than 40,000 tons of pesticides are being used in Bangladesh. And because of the mass usage of these pesticides, the health of our people are getting very much harmed. Also, it's very much harsh on the land and our environment. According to the research, the farmers who uses pesticides regularly, they have a lot of health issues like breathing, skin problem, and 60% of the farmers don't even use any mask or anything to protect them. Another information is a lot of farmers also, like, while using the pesticides or putting the pesticides, they're smoking or they're having food, which is very much dangerous. 18% farmers are having problems with breathing, and 17% of farmers are having eye problems, skin diseases, etc. So, what is the remedy of this? What is the way out of this? So, what we think that is this that we need to come to an organic solution of pesticides, not chemical pesticides. So, without using the chemicals or harmful chemicals, we can actually use different materials of our wastage, which we can also use as pesticides, as non-organic, as organic pesticides. And we have the knowledge of producing it. We have been using a lot of methods to stop pests getting into our crops. But for more profit, we are not using those organic solutions. We are using pesticides, especially chemical pesticides. But what we are trying, from last 1 year, we are promoting and awareing people about organic pesticides, organic way to keep pests away. There is different methods like cage methods and light methods, base stove, and then balloons, etc. Thank you for this time, allotting me this time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Kolam. And actually, this the issue of the banned pesticides is something that is affecting many countries around the world, and as you have mentioned, it's something that is affecting heavily Bangladesh, and we will also see in the next presentation how many of these highly hazardous pesticides that are banned in the UK and are banned in Europe, in the European Union, are sold across the world, both in Bangladesh and in Kenya. So in the next documentary, we are going to see this issue of access to seeds and access to alternative ways of pesticides. And this video has been co-produced with the Kenyan Peasants League. And so please, let's, in the meantime, please feel free to post the questions on the question and answer box, and we will have a few minutes after this presentation to reply.
Farming and fishing are central to the lives and livelihoods of the Bangladeshi people, but the climate crisis is putting this at risk.
In 2020, Kenya suffered 2 waves of locust invasions that heavily damaged crops around the country. At the same time, COVID-19 related economic and health crises in the country were growing. In response, the Kenyan government announced a so-called smart climate agriculture program to tackle the emergency, which involved an increase in the use of toxic chemical fertilizers. The government relaxed the already loose regulations around toxic pesticides, with devastating consequences to farmers' health and livelihoods.
And based on the findings, we found out that there's a majority of Kenyans who are still using the banned chemical pesticides that have been banned in the UK or Europe, but are being imported into Kenya. So the question that we're asking is, if a chemical pesticide is banned in the UK, it means it has got health problems. It means that it can also affect Kenyans. Why is it that the Kenyan government is still allowing importation of these banned chemical pesticides that have been banned in Europe and in the UK?
The UK produces and exports thousands of tons of dangerous toxic pesticides or agrotoxics to the global south each year, including many which have been banned for use in the UK.
When the soil is healthy, the human beings, the animals will also be healthy. Chemical fertilizers destroy our soils. Chemicals that are in them, when they get reverted into the soil and then they get consumed, they cause a lot of diseases.
Tumeshakubali ukulima ndogo ndogo ambaye tunataka kuchunga miili zetu, kwa sababu tukikula hii maneno ya GMO, hii dawa ya kienyeji ni mzuri sana. Umesewa kwera baba. Karibu bwana. Karibu yawa.
Sikuwa nimekutana na kina David na hii group ya KBL. Sikuwa naamini hiyo kitu. So baada ya hiyo nikaenda nikapewa mbegu kidogo na mama ya David huko mahali inaitwa Mariwa. Akaniambia, mtoto yangu, enda panda hii, utakuja kuniambia.
Nairobi huwezi pata maji safi kama hii. Kwa sababu unapata kuna zile makampuni zinatengeneza chemicals, zinamwaga hiyo chemical kwa maji. Hiyo maji ni wakulima wanatumia kumwagia mboga. Unajua nikwambie, hii mboga ilipopandwa ilikuwa ndogo sana. Inamea kwa sababu inachukua hiyo maji na kila kitu kwa udongo. Whatever it means that those companies ambassadors in manufacture chemical pesticides and chemical fertilizers, they are the ones who are responsible for climate change.
The chemical fertilizers and the herbicides they are bringing here in Kenya are causing a very grievous danger to the lives of the Kenyans. The fertilizers that they are bringing in are degrading our soils. They should stop.
Wengine wanasema wameshikwa na ulcers, wengine kichwa, tumbo. Tunajifunza jinsi ya kufunza watu jinsi ya kutumia organic kwa mashamba zao na wawache ile ya GMO. Tunataka turudi kama zamani, kwa sababu mababu zetu walikuwa wanatumia hiyo organic ya ng'ombe, mbuzi.
All those things are locally available. So I'm going to try on that. Life example ni hapa kwa shamba yangu. Kuna wakati nilikuwa naweka mbolea kabisa ya duka. CN, urea, hii ya kupika nini ya dudu, mboga inakuja hivi. Na hata mimi nilikuwa nawaja sehemu kidogo siweki dawa. Ninatubu kwa hiyo kabisa kwa sababu ninaua watu wengine alafu mimi ni unaona. So nikatumia hiyo madawa ya duka ya kununua. Ikafika wakati shamba ikakata, mchanga ikakata. Nikipanda mboga kidogo inakuja inakuwa yellow, inakauka kwa sababu mchanga imekuwa poison.
Warren Want's partners, the Kenyan Peasants League, are creating new, organic alternatives to toxic pesticides while opposing their import from Europe. Food production crises, such as that in Kenya in 2020, are exacerbated by Global South countries' high dependency on expensive imported agricultural products, such as pesticides and fertilizers. This dependency creates a structural inequality that makes overcoming food crises more difficult. Addressing this dependency is crucial to building food sovereignty.
We are working on how to make a very good organic pesticide. Shake it properly, shake it well, until it becomes a very clear solution. You shake it even for 30 good minutes. This one is now ready to be used in our farms.
Katigo kode a lot, kudini matho, a lot beya beya. Wapona pona oboke ne moka bifulo nyingi. Gino boka dik, abiruta moyo to tuo. To kose tuo tawange.
We believe it is a very great step forward for us as KPL to have one of our members who could actually do that.
Imane odoma. Kata sani kuchunga mo manya kudini machama lotini. Achia en monobo. Mano Nyasaye mukeli ya kura na kiataka. Anano na afuenyo kudi ni manie yita lot kata kudi ni manie chunyo doma mae maneno kunego maler nyakate chunya poyo mae maneno kunego na maler to manie ilo to kasepe mo mang'e.
Number one, it is going to help our people a great deal because it is made from the locally available materials that are environment friendly. And not only environment friendly, but easily available for use. In Mulo and Mariwa, we tested it on fall armyworm, and it cleared it.
And this is part of a broader campaign that is advocating against or for banning of importation of harmful chemical pesticides from the UK, like paraquat, for example, which is sold in the local market as Gramaxone. When we are saying we ban, we must have alternatives, and that's what this project is all about: to build alternatives to chemical pesticides, to chemical fertilizers, and to the industrial seeds. We intend to use the test results to lobby both government and non-governmental organizations to push for large-scale production of the organic pesticide.
Another major threat to food sovereignty in Kenya is the control agricultural corporations wield over access to seeds. Again, in this area, the Kenyan Peasants League are building justice-based, environmentally sound alternatives.
You cannot achieve the other without doing the other. The moment you can't bank your seed, then you cannot grow your food. You'll be growing food from Monsanto, you'll be growing food from Syngenta, you'll be growing food from One Acre Farm, name them, Apollo. You see, the day they stop supplying food, your seeds, you will be out of food also. So the only way to attain food sovereignty is seed sovereignty. The farmers need to own the seeds. The farmers need to have legal ownership of the lands they live in. These meetings, as I said, help our farmers to understand that the struggles are the same. During these meetings, we exchange seeds. If you come to this homestead, you'll see some of the seeds that come from Baringo, for example. So we believe that in this our struggle against chemical pesticides, building homestead partnership, cluster to cluster partnerships. The focus of KPL now in this struggle is empowering the youth at the homestead level.
Seed company will work with the government. For me, give me lungoni ongo. Kose miye mondo oyud chance mondo dhi usangowa mondo us kothe ne jopur. Government ubi wuyo gi jopur. Bana gima ne timore. Kose wuyo gi jopur to o convince gi molombo gi wach. Bang' mano omiye gi gima iluongo ni fertilizer. Fertilizer no timilo ni GMO. Ne wan gima ni seed failure. Ok ne gidhi maber, nok ginyak. Koro ma bang' mano ma koro ka jo KPL osebiro to meke gi ka odhi motimore nade otimo maber. Mane gima nwatemo nyiso. Viva KPL, viva! Viva!
Kenyan Peasants League, we have a policy of establishing household seed banks, cluster seed banks, and national seed banks. And the reason why we are doing this is, first of all, we want to ensure that the seeds are available with the farmers. So each and every farmer must be able to save their own seeds in their households, and then a collection of the seeds in the households are kept at the cluster. First of all, we are fighting climate change. The process of producing industrial seeds is fossil fuel intensive, and therefore it contributes to climate change. Again, the miles taken to transport those seeds from overseas to Kenya also is emitting emissions, and that's why we are making this movement of making household seed banks and cluster seed banks is a way of fighting climate change.
Koro gin gi ng'ado ni ok gichak giti gi kothe mag ang'o maka sirikal nikech gin oyuma. Koro mano emomiyo wamedo tielo kendo wamedo wacho matek ni wati gi kothewa wawegi mwang'eyo ni kothewa makato kwa pidho ka.
Already, an kaka bone, an koda in my seed bank. This is just a portion of what I have in my seed bank.
It is a co-activity within KPL to do seed exchange, right from household level to cluster level and even to the national level. It is also one of the ways of ensuring that diversity is preserved. Through seed exchange, we keep seeds from one generation to another.
I'm proud in this group because the seeds, we get them, we don't buy them. It makes me to be financially stable.
The old one which we are practicing now is more better than that one of nowadays, because these ones do sustain our body.
I plant cowpeas. It takes around 3 months to grow. After harvesting, I dry the seeds. I take the seeds and dry, and then we keep them for the next season.
We have seeds within our home. Whenever you want, you come to your neighbor. You get the type of the seed you want. So every home within this KPL group, everybody has got a bank at his home.
We get some knowledge how we can manage our crops and even the seeds, how we can keep our seeds safe for the next planting.
So all this information is going to be documented to ensure that now when somebody walks into this particular homestead, they're able to say, I want this variety of beans, I can get it from this particular farmer.
A full history of a particular seed, the full name, the source of the seed, the maturity time, how to plant it, the spacing, that is. With the commercial seeds, they don't provide such information to the farmers. They don't. All they do is to advertise the seed and say, well, this seed is good, and that is all. I inherited this from my grandmother, who also inherited this from her grandparents. I will also pass this to my children. These are seeds that have done better for ages.
Down with the chemical pesticide, down.
Down.
Down with the chemical pesticide, down.
Down.
Down with the chemical fertilizers, down.
Down.
Down with the chemical pesticide, down.
Down.
Viva KPL, viva!
Viva!
Viva KPL, viva!
Viva! It is also a way of ensuring what we call food sovereignty, or the rights of the farmers themselves to own the seeds and to have that right over the food that they eat, they produce and eat themselves. They come with lots of propaganda in dehumanizing the farmer seed system. They will always tell you, oh, when you plant the conventional seeds, the yield will be so high, which is not. We've done a lot of comparison work here. And the plots that have actually been planted using organic manure are doing far much better. And that's why I'm certain we as KPL are winning the war. We are on the right track. When we started, we were very few. But you see, the movement has since grown bigger.
We mama, inastahili tukue equal.
We have had many clusters getting formed day after day. The indigenous seeds getting in demand from a very wider population across Kenya, and not only in Kenya. So I can see there's a very big stride. We've made a very big stride. I'm very proud of that.
Thank you very much. We are now going to hear from David Otieno, who is here in representation of the Kenyan Peasants League. David is an agroecologist, a smallholder farmer, and a member of the Kenyan Peasants League, KPL, where he serves also as the acting national convener, secretary general, and the policy advisor. KPL is a social movement of smallholder farmers and consumers whose aim is to enable transition to agroecology for food sovereignty and climate justice. Please, David, again, I will remind you 2 minutes before the expiration of the presentation.
Yes, thank you so much. I hope you can hear me. Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I'm in the rural area, so maybe I'll be having some internet problem, but I'm sure we are going to finish this. As has been said, thank you, Sabrina, for making this to happen. And first of all, maybe I would want to say that I've learned a lot from the first presentation. And I've also seen a lot of things that mirror the struggles that we are facing in Kenya. And also, as I looked at the video of KPL, I remembered our late national convener, Mr. Diko Lela, who was laid to rest on 12th of this month. He was very much instrumental in this project. He was actually the project leader in this project that we are going to talk about. So as I'm also going to make this presentation, I'm also paying a tribute to him, and may his soul rest in power. Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. As has been said, Kenyan Peasants League is a movement, a social movement of smallholder food producers. We work in 6 counties in Kenya, and we organize in clusters. And part of our objective is to promote peasant agroecology as a solution to attaining climate justice. So the struggle against climate change, its causes, the so-called 4 solutions form part of the Kenyan Peasants League struggle against climate change. Yeah, sometimes in 2020, KPL did at the height of the locust invasion in Kenya, in collaboration with other organizations, we were able to conduct a case study on the impact of locusts and how the government responded. What we were focusing more was how the government responded. And what came out clearly from both primary and secondary sources was that the government responded by using chemical pesticides. Some of the respondents indicated that the chemical pesticides had effects both on animals, on plants and other insects that are not locusts. So upon this report, we were able to also get in touch with a professor from Austria, who also got in touch with us and said, okay, come on, I've read your report, and he is testing a formulation on organic pesticides. During all these processes, we are also engaging with one-on-ones on a campaign against importation of chemical pesticides into Kenya that have been banned in the UK and maybe the greater Europe. And during these discussions, we were able also to incorporate the aspect of alternatives. And that's when we said, okay, fine, we are campaigning against these chemical pesticides. So what next? When farmers ask us, what can we use? And that's when, on joint discussions, we were able to incorporate the aspects of testing this organic pesticide so that it can act as an alternative. And alongside also, we focused on seeds, where we also enhanced seed banking, because at the height of COVID-19, again, that disrupted movements in most parts of Kenya and the world. We received requests for seeds from both members and non-members, and sometimes we could run out of the seeds. So we put this as a focus so that we ensure that we have seeds available for people who want them. Also, one of the key plans of the project was also to conduct soil improvement programs as an alternative to chemical fertilizers, pile composting, developing more compost, and all these were done as part of wider KPL activities, and also a part of the project that was aimed at supporting agroecological transition and also challenging harmful agrochemicals in Kenya, including banned pesticides in the EU. So largely the phase 1 was involved establishing demonstration plots, south sites, where we did controlled field tests on organic formulation. And also during this process, we also had local farmers who had also indicated that they also had several formulations. So we did them collectively into one. So we established 4 demonstration sites where there was controlled use of these chemical pesticides on different insects, not only locusts. And throughout this process, documentation was happening, because we're also taking this as a learning process so that we can have enough data to conduct advocacy and to be able also to develop like a document that can be used to educate other farmers during farmer-to-farmer exchange programs. Yeah, so and also there was some bit of advocacy during our meetings where petitions were written to both the levels of government. And during the phase 2, which is actually now ongoing, one of the issues was to be able to now to grow one of the active ingredients of the chemical pesticides, which is a plant. So that has happened. And the idea is to be able to study how the plant is responding to the environment, conduct documentation, and to the process of processing the product from the plant. So this is part of also creating alternative economy, in the sense that it will help us also if we apply for production in the Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Services, KEPHIS, and get green light to produce it, then it can also be used as a source of creating income for the farmers who also will be growing this active ingredient. So currently, we also level of advocacy at the national level. We did a case study on the trend and the use of chemical pesticides and the readiness of the farmers. This was done in 3 counties. And what we realized is that some of the chemical pesticides that have been banned in the listed as banned in the UK are still in circulation and are being used by farmers. In areas like Migori County, where we have Sony Sugar Company, there was a report of high use of Roundup and other pesticides, which is again affecting the ecosystem of local rivers like River Sare. In areas like Machakos, also intense use of chemicals has seen death of fish in Athi River. So all these are some of the issues that came up. So we developed also a policy brief. And in this policy brief, we were able to highlight all this evidence that we got from the field, and also supported by other secondary sources. And we were able to engage with Migori County, and we were also able to engage with Baringo County. And such engagements are yielded fruit because in Migori County, for example, we have had initial meetings which is aimed at developing framework. So basically, I think most of it has been seen in the video, and I will stop there, maybe to be able to respond to 1 or 2 questions that that can emerge during this process. Thank you so much, comrades, for putting this up.
Thank you. Thank you so much to David for your presentation and for also connecting the problem that many countries are facing at the moment with the export of very, very unhealthy, very highly hazardous pesticides from the global north to the south, and how these double standards are applied at the moment, where countries are in the global north for health and safety reasons are not applying these pesticides, and while at the same time the same pesticides that are very hurtful for the humans are supposed not to be hurtful to humans who are living in other geographical parts of the world. So these double standards and injustices are really terrible, and the people in the north have to be aware of these injustices and how they can actively be involved in international solidarity with organizations that are actively struggling against the import of this pesticide, the import of untested GMOs. And so we have, it's right now 1 o'clock UK time, and we have some questions in the question and answer. So comment from Susan, good work to both of you for the good work you're doing. And then another question that David is answering live. Feel free to post any questions. We are going to stretch maybe a couple of minutes more. If anyone has any comments or additional question to the speakers, please feel free to do this. And as a reminder, this video is being recorded, so you will be able to watch it also in a second time on YouTube and on Facebook. So one question from the audience, Faith, how do we educate local farmers on beet organic practices when it seems there is a bit of information hoarding on what works? I strongly urge all researchers on organic pesticides, fertilizers, herbicides should share willingly best practices so other local farmers can adopt and localize their solutions. David replied, sure, this is a critical issue. We need to enhance farm-based research and seek funding for it so that we can generate knowledge that can be shared. If Golam and David, you have anything else to add? We are a little bit stretched with the time. I just wanted to drop a quick question to both of you, which is, what are some active things that people in the UK and in the North can do as a sign of solidarity with the work that you are doing? If David or Golam, you want to answer to that question, then we will wrap up and we will close the session. Golam?
অনেক ধন্যবাদ।
Thanks a lot. Actually, in reality, we are using a lot of pesticides, and it's damaging us, and we need to get out of it. There has to be a way out, and we have to get a way out. What the practice we are doing is to awareing the farmers. So we start, as an organization, we start doing those and showing the practices of not using the pesticides and showing it to the farmers. We are doing it in a very small range, but we have to do it more. So we are testing it in one village or two villages, not to use pesticides or using other alternatives. But the range has to be more, much more. Another thing is, the banned chemical pesticides, the developed country or first world people who have banned the pesticides, why those are allowed in our country? And that needs to be seen as well, that why the policymakers of here are not banning those pesticides here. So we need these pesticides to be banned in our country, and we want people from developed country to raise voice that the pesticides we banned, why are you still selling those to the developing countries? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Golam. Yes, again, international solidarity even in the most difficult moments of crisis is absolutely vital, because the power that these corporations are having in regulating and controlling our global food system is increasing. So we need to be aware of this power, and we need to be aware of the strategies that we can use in order to support the struggles of movements around the world. David, do you want to add some final reflections on this?
Yes, thank you. I think
the first thing I would say is that maybe just to comment on the question by Faith, is that we need to actually enhance farm-based research, because we find that sometimes some of the research are considered as data mining, where they have rights, so maybe the results can be released. But if we have farm-based, farmer-led research, maybe in support of institutions, higher learning institutions, we can have results that can be shared freely without attaching intellectual properties to it. And maybe on the issue of what can be done in the UK, I think one thing is that we need to, the groups in the UK, first of all, we need to organize a roundtable such that how can we, groups in Kenya, in Bangladesh, who are being affected by chemical pesticides produced in UK, how can we have access to the parliament, to the relevant committees? How can we have roundtables with relevant people in the parliament, in the Downing Street? How can we access, maybe write articles that can be shared with local dailies, you know? So I think one way is to ensure that the effects of such pesticides are felt by those citizens, because the idea is we need to spur, or for lack of a better word, incite the citizens in the UK, in the European Union, to start holding their governments to account. Come on, why are you exporting these chemical pesticides into poisonous chemical into countries like Kenya, into countries like Bangladesh? So such solidarity would be very critical to us during this time. Otherwise, thank you so much. Okay, I can also add, so there's something that I also want to add. One gap again that is existing because of KPL, and I think this is the situation in most of the countries, that the extension services that were previously being done or given by government are not there, and such gaps are being filled by multinational institutions, the companies, Syngentas, Monsanto, producing GMOs, because the government is doing nothing. So the gap, the information gap, is being filled, and they are feeding our farmers with wrong information. And as movement also, we need to start developing, and as KPL, we are now establishing brigades, and part of the work of these brigades is to ensure that they provide information to the farmers, reaching farmers in their farms, because you find that in rural areas like Kenya, you find companies like Syngenta having agents to the rural markets, talking to the old women in the community. So that's a gap that as movements, we need to raise resources to be able to support extension services by our own, giving the right information to the farmers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. Yes, and actually that last observation on the extension services is an observation on the trend that we have witnessed in the last decade of not so slow, almost faster, but increasing privatization of our rights, of our land, of our food, of our seeds, and also services that before were basic services provided by the state in support of farmers, now are being outsourced to transnational corporations, which obviously will push for their interest. So instead of, advising farmers on how to do the things in certain ways, they will always try to sell their technological package of seeds and agrotoxics. So absolutely, that is another important problem that we have been witnessing in these last years on a global level. So I think we can close. We're almost finishing punctual today. I want to thank everyone for joining. Thanks so much to the speakers, to Golam, to David, and to the interpreters, and for the fantastic job that they have done. And apologies if somehow there has been a little bit of connection issues. We will revise the recording, put it on YouTube, and if subtitles are needed, we will also add them. So feel free to share this presentation with your networks and contacts, and read our new report, and particularly also the struggles and the alternatives that our partners are building on part 2 of the report, and share also the documentaries that you have watched today with all the networks and friends. Thank you, everyone, and see you next time, and goodbye.